Your host, Paul Solomon. LUHU Advisors is your one-stop call to help quarterback and organize all your needs for senior planning, from finances, insurance, long-term care, and estate planning documents. At LUHU Advisors, let us help you with planning for the future. Now enjoy the show.
Hi everyone, and welcome again to Tuesday nights, 7:30 with LUHU Advisors. I'm your host and owner of LUHU Advisors, Paul Solomon. For people that haven't met me yet, I am a licensed real estate broker. I am a licensed insurance agent, life, long-term care, annuities. I am a licensed assisted living administrator, and I am a certified senior advisor. And when I put that all together, I help families do long-term care planning, to help figure out how to pay for those bills, those hours of care, the assisted livings, the nursing homes that family are thrown into crisis-wise. I am dedicating this show this week to my parents, the picture you see there, my mom and dad, Ann and Abe. Unfortunately, Abe passed away 3 years ago, October 18th, and my mom is going to be 94 years young on Saturday, October 15th. So I have to give a shout out to them just because my Medicaid long-term care planning all started because of them back in 2009 and 2010. We had to figure out a plan for my own parents, and that's how I got started in the business. And now it's 10, 12 years later, and helping hundreds of families, whether it's weekly, daily. I get phone calls all times during the day, people asking me, hey, I have this quick question, can I help you? So tonight we're going to talk about Medicaid planning. I'm going to throw out a couple cases that I'm dealing with and how everything just blends in together, whether, again, it's my real estate, my insurance, or government benefits that I work on every day. And this one case that I was working on today started a couple weeks ago with a phone call from a son from New York. His parents lived down here in Boca Raton. His dad was in the hospital, and they had to figure out what they were going to do with that. So a lot of my cases are crisis planning. I love to help people with pre-planning and come and talk to me saying, oh, we're a couple years out, what should we do? But most of my cases are mom or dad in the hospital, slip or fall, health issue, going into rehab, or now they're coming out of rehab, and what should we do? And how are we going to pay for it? So this family, we'll use Bob and Mary as their name. Bob was put in today, or actually yesterday, into a nursing home. Mary's still living at home. And their son from New York, I've been working with him. He's not here, and he's probably planning not coming down anytime soon. The first person they hired, which was awesome, and that's what I recommend many times, is somebody use a geriatric care manager to try and organize, be the point person for somebody coming out of the hospital and what's their next step. They go to hospital, they'll go to the doctor's office, they'll try and figure out prescriptions for them and make sure everything's set up at home. So that's the first person they spoke to. The geriatric care manager then called me and said, hey, you got to call Paul. Paul's going to help you try and figure out their finances, try and figure out their real estate, and hopefully try and find a bed for us to where dad would be the most comfortable. So I got that phone call, spoke to their son Mark, and he said, all right, within like 15 minutes, he said, you're hired. I said, okay, wait a second. We got some work to do before you can hire me. Please fill out this intake form. That's where all my cases start, so I can get all that information from them, their finances, bank accounts, who the brokerage accounts are, who owns their real estate, is there a mortgage, and do they have their estate planning docs in place, because that's going to come up pretty quickly if it hasn't come up in the past. Usually when you're in the hospital says, do you have these documents in place, DNR, living will, and they had none. So that was our first place. So I had a little meeting with the attorney that I work with, and we discussed all the 3 or 4 different documents that we needed. We also talked about the real estate and how the house was deeded. and that's where my real estate background comes in. I knew that it really wasn't deeded correctly, meaning that it was fine how it is, but again, going into the future, whose name was it in? Do we want to avoid probate? And what's the best way to handle that? So I met with the attorney. The attorney and the paralegals drew up the legal documents the other day, and I made a trip over to the nursing home this morning and had a couple people there with me so that they could be the witnesses, and we went through the 4 or 5 different documents that we had to go through. They answered all their questions. Everything seemed okay. There was their son, but there was also 2 daughters. So we had to make sure, besides who was the power of attorney, which didn't really make sense to have the mom as the power of attorney, just because the mom is getting up on age, and they figured, let's just do these documents once. So we had the son as the power of attorney and then one of the daughters as the successors. So we had all the papers signed, came home, emailed them back. I'm a notary, besides everything else I do. So I notarized all the statements, all the documents that needed to be done, shipped them back down to the attorney. So the legal documents were done and they're in place. That took care of that. Now we're dealing with their assets. Like a lot of families, I see their mom and dad usually have their accounts in both their names. So they'll either have their checking account in both their names, savings accounts in both their names. Their financial brokerage account was in both their names, but they did have 2 separate IRA accounts, one for Bob and one for Mary. So we talked about that with the son, how we're going to try and consolidate. And that's kind of what I do. My experience from what I've seen in the last couple of years is that a lot of families have multiple accounts in mom and dad's names. They'll have it at 3 or 4 different banks. If there's a great CD rate, they'll open up a couple CDs at different banks and they'll play the game of running after the CD rates. So what I tell the sons and daughters, I said, hey, the easiest thing, because now it's your job going forward, let's consolidate everything into 1 or 2 accounts. And let's figure this out. We might have to open up a couple of new accounts, of which is what we did between yesterday and today. We opened up a new account. We have to move Social Security funds that come into the accounts into the different bank accounts. And, you know, again, I'm holding their hand through the whole process. Usually what I do with my assistant is we break it down step by step, going from the most important, let's get step 1 done. Let's get step 2 done and work our way down the list, especially when it's long distance. The family really isn't here. But they have me, they have the geriatric care manager. We then found the bed for Bob to be in, so he will be there. And again, he's not locked into that. If they're not happy with that community, that facility, that nursing home they put Bob into, he can be moved. It's not the last resort. We just found the closest local bed. Right now here in South Florida, we're having a hard time finding beds, nursing home beds for people. So we were able to find a bed, especially for males. I read something today that it's females to males, it's 2 to 1. So unfortunately, when you go look for a bed for a male, it's hard to find just because there's so many females taking up a lot of the nursing home and rehab beds that are out there. So that's part of the plan. So we got everything to the point of what we can do right now. It's going to take us probably till the end of October to get all the paperwork, all the accounts in order. And we're trying to hopefully file by the end of the month for Medicaid. And if not, just because, again, the long distance, I don't have the son here with me where we can run to the bank on a daily basis, then the family might have to pay next month, pay out of pocket to the nursing home. So they're looking at about $9,000 to $10,000 for that. They have assets. We're going to try and rush it so we get as quickly it done by the end of the month as possible. But if not, I explained to the son, we might have to come out of pocket for that 1 month. And he was okay with that because he knows that would be the last month that they would have to pay. Ongoing from there, Medicaid would pick up the tab for that nursing home. They would have to pay his Social Security to the nursing home as like that copay deductible. They get to keep $130 from that Social Security that they have coming in for Bob. And they can use that for getting his hair done, incidentals that they might not be covered under Medicaid, which there are a couple things that I've experienced even with my own dad every month, that they can use that money towards their dad. So this case kind of, again, crisis mode, moving into a nursing home, changing their accounts, changing their brokerage account. That's kind of what I do. And like I told their mom, I'm going to have to meet her at a bank probably in the next week or two, just because there's an account that needs to be open. Bob's income technically is over the limits for Medicaid, so we have to open up a special account that Medicaid wants to see for that amount over. And it's crazy, he's over by like $50 a month, but he's over. So a lot of people that I've spoken to said, once you're over and you get denied. That's not the case. With some planning, with the legal documents that the attorney draws up, we can still qualify that person for Medicaid, even though their income is over the limit. And because there's Bob and Mary together, we can move the assets that were in both their names into Mary's name and get Bob qualified. And again, it should take roughly about 30 days, but it might get pushed into November in this particular situation. And that's my common case. That's really what I deal with a lot of, planning for Medicaid for these families. More people can qualify than you think. I would love to speak to your family if there is an idea that care is needed. You can always call me in studio here at 888-994-4995, Studio A, every Tuesday night. We're here at 7:30. If it's after the show, you can call me on my cell phone at 954-540-6609. You can go to my website, LUHUadvisors.com, and that's LUHU Advisors.com. You can go on there and watch some of my past shows. We're going to start, as of next week, putting educational clips on there so people understand really what we need to do for the families and how we can help them. I have a team of experts that I work with, whether it's the attorney, whether it's the geriatric care manager, whether it's the senior placement person to help you find the right community, whether it's the home health care agency if you want to keep them at home, whether it's a reverse mortgage person. We're going to talk about that in a second, how we can keep your loved ones at home and pull money out of the house and just not have to drain their assets so much, but use their home, which a lot of seniors, they don't have a mortgage. And that's great that they don't have a mortgage payment, but how about pulling the money out of your house and still not having a mortgage payment? Now, a lot of people say, it's impossible, can't do it. This is an FHA product backed by the government, so unless the government is doing something hoopy-scoopy, this is how people can retire, create an income stream, or pay for long-term care. So it's done every day. One thing I want to get back to before we go to a commercial break is, when we get back from the commercial break, is I want to talk about last week's show when we talked about Social Security and annuities. So I'd like to go to a commercial, and we'll come back in a moment, and we'll finish that topic up.
Planning for the future should not be painful and needs to be discussed. From health, family, finances, allow qualified professionals to aid in your planning. LUHU Advisors have been serving South Florida for over 30 years. A licensed real estate broker, insurance agent, assisted living administrator, and certified senior advisor, Paul Solomon is the most qualified and well-rounded advisor for any task. Specializing in real estate, long-term care, life insurance and annuities, Social Security, government benefits, and senior housing. LUHU Advisors. Let us help you.
You've been listening to the LUHU Advisor Show. Do you have a goal for senior long-term planning? Let us help you at LUHU. Call into the show at 888-994-4995, Studio A. Now back to the show.
We're back. So last week's show, I talked about Social Security and I talked about annuities, and I linked them because a lot of people didn't know that your Social Security, when you turn either 62, 65, 67, or 70, depending on when you want to turn it on, is an annuity. So you pay into taxes, your FICA taxes, once you start working, however young you are, and you're paying up until you get to that age in your 60s, and you say, you know what, I'm retiring, I want to turn on my Social Security, and now you're getting this payment for the rest of your life. And we talked about how, depending upon when you turn it on, the best is if you can wait till the age of 70, you'll make the most for the rest of your life. And how we talked about how annuities, kind of the same thing. You pay into an insurance product, an annuity, you're paying into an insurance company, and then you can turn that on, if you desire, for income for the rest of your life. And how the newer annuities also have long-term care benefits, a rider that you can turn on to help you if you need it, or there's a death benefit where you can pass along tax-free on to your heirs. The response I got this week was pretty tremendous from a lot of people saying, you know, how come my financial advisor has never talked to me about annuity? The way the markets are going over the last months, let's call it even the last year, I can't sleep at night. I don't know if I'm going to wake up to the market going down, going up. When do I buy right? When do I sell right? I need the money today and the market's going down. I want to wait till it goes up, but when is it going to go up? With annuities, you don't have that issue, all right? There are guarantees placed on the annuities where you cannot lose money on them. Zero is your hero is the expression. They can't go down, they can only go up. So it's something that everybody should look for in their portfolio. It's another investment that you can have. They're better than the CDs that are out there, even though CD rates are going up a little bit. Annuities are beating those rates. Right now, you can buy a 5-year fixed annuity, meaning you're going to get 5% every year for the next 5 years, guaranteed. You can't get that anywhere else. So people should look into that. Give me a call, again, at 954-540-6609. Just call and ask me any questions that you might have, and we'll talk about what's the right fit. Sometimes annuities aren't the right fit, even though if you are over the age of 55 to 59, and you're thinking about buying long-term care insurance, then annuities might be a good fit because you have the death benefit, you have the guarantees in there, and then you could flip the switch as time goes on. If you get sick, you can have that long-term care insurance that's involved. Another client, changing the subject again here now to reverse mortgages for a second, because I had another client which was a perfect scenario. And again, this is what I don't know when the phone rings during the course of the week and I just get different scenarios thrown at me. But I had a 60-something-year-old call me and said, listen, I'm looking to buy a house. I want to pay cash. So now I have my real estate hat on thinking, all right, 60-something years old, looking to buy cash, coming down from New York, doesn't want a mortgage. And he's over 62 years old. And he's looking probably to buy a $600,000-$700,000 house. And I said, listen, why do that? Why pay cash? Well, I don't want a mortgage. I don't want anybody to have to worry about anything. I don't want that extra payment. And I said, what happens if you can put down half? So let's say you're buying that $700,000 house and you put down $350,000. I said, and never have a mortgage payment. He's like, I never heard of that. What is that? And I said, well, that's buying a house under the reverse mortgage banner called HECM for purchase. And what that does is you being able to purchase a house, never have a mortgage payment. You still have to pay your insurance, your homeowner's insurance, your HOA, and your real estate taxes, but never have a mortgage payment. And he said, wow, that could be really interesting. And he said, you know, what's the going interest rates on that? And I said, they should be whatever the prevailing rates are. It's the same as going for a normal mortgage. I said, but let me bring in the reverse mortgage specialist to talk to you. And I said, but before we bring him in, I said, how you doing with long-term care insurance? He's like, yeah, you know, I started thinking about it. I see that you also get involved with seniors, and I really want to talk to you about my 92-year-old mother. We're not sure what to do with her, and we really need to coordinate some planning with her. She lives here in Delray Beach, and you know, I want to talk to you about a house first, but then there's my mom I need to talk to also. I said, all right, let's get back to you for a second. So now, if you don't put this $350,000 into this house, and now maybe you can buy a bigger house if you want, because now if you buy a $400,000 or $450,000 house, now you're only paying $200,000 to $225,000 into that mortgage. all right, for that house, and that's it. No mortgage payment. You put in 2.25, and you're good to go. I said, what are you going to do with the balance? I said, you can keep it with your financial advisor, right? He could hopefully generate good interest for you and keep that going. Or we can take a one-time lump sum, let's call it $100,000 possibly or more, depending upon what you want to do, and put it into this either life insurance policy or an annuity with a long-term care rider attached to it, and let that ride. Never make a payment on it, so you don't have to worry about the policy premiums going up every year. If you do a life insurance policy, then the cash value is just going to keep growing and growing and growing, and you can pull money out tax-free from there. Or you have a death benefit if you pass away. So I could run a quote for you, we can do an illustration, and show you how that could benefit you, and it's a win-win kind of win situation. You're buying a house, right? You could buy even a bigger house than what you thought with no mortgage payment. You can now invest some of that money that you were going to put in the house and sit there and hopefully appreciate. Yes, it's been crazy for the last 2 years, but for the next couple of years it might be down. So let's put some of that money into a policy that can grow, again, from 0 to 10, 12% a year possibly. And God forbid if you pass away, you have that death benefit attached to it. So there's these options that come up every day for families that people just don't know about. And I'm trying to have as many conversations as I can with these families. And as you can see, we start with the son that's looking to buy a house in his 60s, which turns into the parents that are living probably in an over 55 community that their health is ailing. They need probably to start with some home care. And depending upon what they have in the bank and where their money's sitting, maybe we can move some money around and qualify them for government benefits. I'm in the process right now for qualifying my mom for Medicaid benefits, and also I'm going to put an application in for veterans benefits. Benefit for my mom as a surviving spouse, which a lot of people don't even know about, could be upwards about $1,300 a month to help pay for her memory care that she's in. It's found money. All you have to do is fill out the application, get some documents signed by a doctor, from the nurse from the facility, and we put the application in. That's retroactive, so that could take 2, 3, 4, 5 months, but they do then pay you back from the date of application as long as she would qualify. And I know right now from the past of me applying for VA benefits, she will qualify. That won't be the issue. Medicaid, we had our initial phone call with Medicaid probably a week and a half ago. That went well, so now she's on the priority wait list. So we will now wait for that next conversation, and they're going to give me another call. We're going to go through a couple things with my mom. They might even come out and meet with her. Then that evaluation shouldn't be a problem just because she has full-blown dementia, and they'll see as soon as they ask her the first question, they'll see that she needs help doing everything that she needs to do in her community, getting dressed, bathing, having her meal prepped for her. She's incontinent, and she uses a walker to get around, but she's very unstable. So that's kind of everything that I can do for a family, from the house, whether we need to sell the parents' house, whether the adult child is looking to buy a house, reverse mortgages, care planning, assisted living, into that nursing home. These are the conversations I have every week with families, and it's nonstop, and I think it's getting worse, unfortunately. A lot of the families, the adult children, are coming down from wherever they are, part of the country. The weather's starting to change, so we're going to see a lot more activity, and it's getting harder and harder to fill. The assisted livings are filled. So my advice is, let's start at home with some home care. There's some great companies that are out there I've used for my own family. I can recommend them. They're part of my professional team that I have that I recommend. I know what they need, they know what I need when it comes to documentation, and we can get things done. We really do. And it's my team of professionals that can help you and your family. It takes a team. It's overwhelming. It started with me 12 years ago, and again, I thank my parents for helping me get into this business, because I know that I help families every day. trying to understand this broken system that we have called healthcare that just makes no sense. And when you need them the most, are they really there? And then are you getting the right questions you have answered correctly? And I'm going to say, unfortunately, a lot of the times you don't. And you have to fight, and you have to be an advocate, and that's kind of what I do. And if I directly can't help you, I tell you where to go. And I got to tell you, I have some pit bulls out there that just go after these places, whether it's the attorney to make sure the documents are done, whether it's a geriatric care manager that will just go after the doctors, the hospitals, the rehabs, making sure that your family member is taken care of. It's a little cost to have that peace of mind, believe me. I've gotten those phone calls at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when they're sending my parents to the hospital. And I'm here locally, so I run. But if you're not here locally, then you really need this help. So again, I could be reached anytime at 954-540-6609. You can go to LUHU, LUHU Advisors.com, or you can email me at paulsolomonpa.com, or you can just drop in any Tuesday night at 7:30 and ask those questions, or come down to the studio. Thanks again for spending this Tuesday night with me, and I look forward to hearing and seeing you next week. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the LUHU Advisors Show. Tune in each week for more tips and strategies for starting the conversation with your loved ones, from senior housing to financial planning strategies. Contact Paul Solomon at 954-540-6609. We'll see you next time.